Rain fell like sorrow from heaven as mourners gathered beneath gray skies, umbrellas bowing in silence. Detective Caleb Mercer stood at the front, hands clenched, staring down at the small white coffin being lowered into the ground. His daughter, Lily, just 7, was gone. Taken from him in a moment of senseless violence. She'd been the light of his life. After losing his wife to cancer 5 years earlier, Lily had become his anchor. Now, that anchor was gone, and he was adrift in an ocean of grief. People whispered. About the killer who hadn't been found. About the tragedy of a man who had spent his life solving crimes, but couldn't save his own child. Caleb didn't hear them. He only heard silence. A silence that screamed. That's when it happened. A small voice from behind. "Sir, sir." Caleb turned, slowly, his eyes dull. Standing at the edge of the crowd was a boy. Barefoot. Drenched. Clothes clinging to his tiny frame. His hair was wild, and his cheeks were sunken. Clearly homeless. A child no older than 10. "The killer, he's back there," the boy whispered, pointing a trembling finger toward the treeline. At first, Caleb thought it was the delusion of a troubled kid, maybe hallucinating from hunger or trauma. But then the boy looked him dead in the eyes, and something in his stare cut through Caleb's numbness. "Did you see something?" Caleb asked softly, crouching to his level. The boy nodded. "I sleep near the river. The man, he dropped something after he left the house that night. I saw him. He wore a black jacket. Had a scar here." The boy traced a line across his jaw. Caleb's heart skipped. That detail hadn't been made public. Back at the station, Caleb reviewed the case with new urgency. The killer had been meticulous. No fingerprints. No DNA. No leads. But now, there was a witness. He found the boy huddled near a heating vent behind a bakery that night. Caleb brought him food, dry clothes, and for the first time in weeks, asked questions not as a grieving father, but as a detective. The boy's name was Micah. Or at least, that's what he remembered being called before running from a group home. He described the man in vivid detail, the way he walked, the sound of his voice, even the license plate numbers on a black van. It was enough. Within days, authorities tracked down a man named Roy Kessler, an ex-con who had lived 2 streets over from Caleb. A search of his home revealed Lily's missing bracelet and photos of her school. Caleb almost collapsed. The arrest made national headlines. Detective's daughter's killer caught thanks to homeless boy's testimony. Caleb stood beside Micah during the press conference, but when it was over, the boy quietly slipped away, unnoticed by the cameras. Weeks passed. Caleb went through motions, trials, interviews, grief counseling, but he couldn't forget the boy. He'd saved the case. He'd given Lily justice. And yet, he was still alone. One cold evening, Caleb returned to the bakery. "Have you seen Micah?" he asked the owner. The woman hesitated, then handed Caleb a worn-out notebook. "He gave me this. Said if anyone came looking, to give it to them." Inside were sketches. Dozens of them. Of Lily's face. Of Caleb's badge. Of hands holding hands. And on the last page, one sentence. "I knew what it was like to be forgotten. I didn't want her to be." Caleb wept. 6 months later, spring warmed the streets of the city. And outside a small suburban house with a freshly painted blue door, Micah laughed, really laughed, for the first time in years. He was no longer homeless. No longer alone. Caleb had taken him in. Not out of guilt. But because in the darkest moment of his life, a child without a home had stepped forward, not just to speak the truth, but to remind him that light still exists. "I didn't save your daughter," Micah once told him. "But maybe, she helped save me." In a world that often feels cruel and chaotic, one act of bravery, one whisper of truth, can be the spark that transforms not just one life, but 2. Compassion isn't about fixing everything. Sometimes, it's about standing beside someone else in the storm, and saying, "You're not alone anymore." And in that, healing begins.